Okay guys, what I'm going to do this morning is talk to y'all about termite shields. Yeah, we went to the store and priced them. They're between, depends on where you get them at, they run between $6 and $8 a piece. It's going to cost us about $60 to, before taxes, to put the number of termite shields we needed on our cabin. I was able to buy this roll of flashing for $30. So that's a $30 savings to me plus tax, you know. And I'm going to show you how I cut my termite shields. Now blocks are 8 inches wide and 16 inches long. So we bought flashing, galvanized flashing that is 12 inches wide. And this is a 50-foot roll. And because I'll show you in a minute why we went with 12-inch wide, but I'm going to show you the process of how I make a termite shield. First of all, I take this roll and I leave me a little piece of metal right here because that kind of helps to, that grabs the roll where it doesn't get away from you. Now every so often, the roll will spin a little bit. That's just because it's wound up. Now what I do is on my framing square, I move it over to 20 inches because the block's 16 inches long. We want at least 2 inches on each side. So that's another 4 inches we got to add to it. So I put my framing square on 20 inches here. That gives me a good straight line here when I get ready to, and this is called a scratch awl. This is what people in the sheet metal industry use. And I'll take that and I make me a mark across the metal like that. You want to use large shears. You don't want to use these little small shears to cut anything with because you end up with what's called fish hooks. Now when you're cutting this, you want to make long, smooth cuts, and you don't want to ever crimp it all the way to the end of your snips. You want to stop when you get about a ½ an inch from the end of the snips. And because when you do that, what happens is that gives you a good, smooth cut across your metal here. You don't have to worry about fish hooks in it. You want to always make sure, you know, it gives you a good, smooth cut right here. It doesn't give you what's called fish hooks. Now, fish hooks is one of those things that'll get you hurt with sheet metal. And I'm gonna demonstrate one of them here. I'm gonna have it on one of mine, but there again, we're gonna roll our metal back, and don't let it roll too fast, because if it rolls very fast, it'll start spinning on you. Once again, we're gonna put the framing square on 20 inches on the outside out here. And we're gonna take our scratch awl. We're gonna make our mark. Now what happens is, if you take a pair of snips, and it don't matter if it's little ones or big ones, and you run it until you snip it all the way to the end like that, and then you come back, what happens is it don't want to fit in your pliers, right? And I'll show you how it. Now, I'm going to try to get the lighting right. You see those humps in that metal? Everywhere you see that hump in that metal like that, that's where you run those snips all the way to the end, and it left a hump in the metal there that's almost, the only way you can straighten it out is with a hammer and a dolly or a hammer and a piece of metal. You can beat it back down straight. But that right there, that edge that's right here, and there's one right here, those have sharp barbs on them, and we call those things fish hooks. And they will, if you walk by something like that, it'll just grab you and it'll stick into you like a briar, but it'll job deep into you. So always remember that when you're using your snips. Now this piece of metal here is exactly the same way. There's a fish hook right there, right there. Everywhere I run those snips to the end, there's a fish hook on it. And you want to always be really careful about doing that when you're fooling with sheet metal. But this is really an easy process. It's not hard to make your own termite shields. Okay guys, I'm going to show y'all how I go about making my termite shields, because my termite shields, I need 2 inches on each side of the metal. I'm trying to get it here where the light's just right. You can see there is a line drawn right here. Then there's a line drawn all the way across right here. Now those lines, and up at the top, I have a piece of I have 2 pieces of flat iron. You see there's a piece on both sides, and I have 2 vice grips holding them. Now there is a line drawn right here. My 2-inch line is drawn all the way down here, and what I'm fixing to do is show you how to bend a termite shield and what it's supposed to look like when you finish with it. Okay guys, here what we have now is the piece of metal in a vise with the 2 vice grips on each end of the metal holding the ends of it. And you don't want to bend the termite shield much, maybe 15 degrees. You want to just take your hand and just bend it just a little bit where the metal kind of stays bent over just a little bit like that. Then you want to, when you take it out of the vise, I'll take the vice grips off of it here now, and I'll kind of get you a little bit more of a view about. Okay, what that has done is that has created a crease all the way down one side of this metal like this, and this helps to make it rigid and flat. Now I'm going to get the other side ready just like we did before with the vice grips in the metal, and I'm going to show bending that side also. Okay, here again we have the metal back in the vise with the vice grips on the other side again, and we're going to bend it. Always remember to bend it in the same direction that you bent this one. We're going to lean it over. Just be careful not that you don't bend. They call this horseshoes. If you bend it too much, too fast in some places, you'll make a horseshoe in it. You don't want to bend it too much. When you get it like that, we'll take it loose. Okay, what you end up with is a piece of metal that's bent down on 2 sides like this. Now we'll come back later and we're going to bend this line right here, and we're going to bend this line over here. What this does is, when you set this on top of a block like this here, the block is underneath where my hand is. The termites, if they happen to go up the block, they're not so apt to come and turn and get around this edge because they slip and fall off because the metal's kind of slick. And they can't really get around this edge to get started back up because it's real slick and their little feet won't hold on to them. So this is why we do, how we build termite shields. Now, granted, it's not a big savings of $30 because this is kind of time consuming to build these. But you know what, on a homestead, sometimes you have more time than you do money. So I wanted to show this. You know, I could have easily bought them, I'm not going to lie, but I wanted to show how you make a termite shield and how it actually works. And we're going to get the rest of these made, and then I'll get over to the blocks on the foundation and I'll show you how these are installed and exactly how they work. Okay guys, we're back over here in the woods where our cabin's at. We've got some of our tools laid out here, sitting on our song mix bench. It makes it a lot easier because it's exactly the same height as a block. I don't have to get down on the knees in the dirt. What I've done is I've brought some shingles over here. This just is old shingles that I had left over from my house I built 13 years ago. I still have my shingles, and I've already broke them to the length of the block from one end to the other like this. And now what I'm going to do is I'm figuring out the width of the block, and I lay it to the back edge of it. And being these shingles is, you can either do this when they're cold. You don't want to do this when the shingles are hot. You can do it when it's cold, or either they're extremely old. A lot of times these shingles will just break. You don't have to have a knife, but if you got a knife with a hawk bill on it and you want to cut them, that's fine. But these are, I mean, these shingles are 13 years old, been stacked out in the shed, so they break pretty easy. So, okay, the reason I'm putting down a piece of asphalt shingle on top of this block is because I'm going to be putting a piece of galvanized flashing for termite shields on top of it. And when metal comes in contact with cement, the lime in it makes it corrosive. So what will happen over a period of years is that corrosiveness between the two will actually eat the metal up. So you want to be able to put a piece of asphalt in between them as a barrier. Now I have an anchor bolt sticking up here, and what I usually will do is get this thing as pretty close as I can, and in my pouch over here I keep a little tiny ball peen hammer. Now you don't want to hit the threads on top of this. That's one thing you don't want to do, but if you tap it kind of lightly around, what will happen is You don't want to get it, is what'll happen. See how that just kind of falls right over that bolt. And you can modify it because it's not really that crucial that that this fits really tight, to make sure that you get a real good fit on top of this block. Now that's a really nice fit. Didn't hurt the bolt at all. It's sitting down on it real good. Next thing we want to do, we want to take our termite shields. Now this is a termite shield that we've been in the shop. Now I made a little bit of a mistake on what I did. I measured out 2 inches and I didn't check my duckbill pliers. My duckbill pliers are 1 3/4 inches. And what that did was it made me have some little crimps in the edges of my metal here when I bent these ends with the duckbill pliers. So, you know, before you go to bend these with duckbills, make sure what size your duckbills are. I thought mine were 2 inches, but they're actually 1 3/4 inches. But nevertheless, I was able to take a hammer and, you know, kind of straighten it out. But, get another one here. Okay guys, you want to set your termite shield in exactly the same position that it's going to go on the blocks, because in sheet metal work you'll learn that you have left-handed and right-handed on everything. So I'm going to set it just like it goes on the block. I'm going to measure over from the edge of the block to the center of that bolt is 5 inches. So I'm going to come from this edge right here, that's the block edge, over 5 inches, and we're going to make us a little mark. We'll come this way. It's 4 7/8 to the center of that bolt. We're going to come back here to our line again. We're going to go 4 7/8, which is right here. What we end up with is a cross here. This cross correlates with that bolt right there. That tells me where that bolt is in this. Now, old sheet metal trick. What you want to do is you want to take your screwdriver, a flat screwdriver, and lay it on its edge right there like that, right against the edge of that. Now it's not crucial that this be exact, because you can have a little bit of space around the bolt. And you just want to take a real sharp tap like that. And when you do that, what it does is it makes a hole inside the metal. Now after having done sheet metal work for years, this is how we used to, you know, it'll pop right back up. You don't have to worry about it. This is how you make a hole in metal. Now you want to lay that down over the top of that bolt and just start working and start pushing. And sometimes you have to take a hammer. Now you don't want to tap hard enough that you hurt your threads, but tap around the bolt. And what that will do is that will pop that down around that bolt. And then what you have is your termite shield fits the block exactly like it's supposed to. Because now if you make these marks on your metal 16 by 8, what that gives you is a 1/4 inch play, because the blocks are actually 15 3/4 by 7 3/4. That gives you a little bit of play. And then once you've done this right here, you can take your hammer and you can kind of go back right next to it, and you can kind of tap it down. And when you tap that down, what that does is that kind of seals it, and you can't pull that back up off of there. It won't come back up. Now for safety reasons, there's one more thing that I do. Because you have people walking around the job sites, and it'll even be you sometimes. I always carry a pair of snips with me. And as soon as I get through doing this, I'll take the corner of this metal here, and I'll cut that metal off, because what will happen is somebody will walk by that, and that corner that's sticking out right there, that's just like a knife. I've had guys on my jobs before that insist on wearing short pants, and what will happen is they'll end up ripping their kneecap or their calf or something like that open on it and have to go end up having stitches. I've had that to happen before. That's the reason I would never let people after a while wear shorts on one of my jobs. Then when you get through, guys, this is a termite shield. Now what will happen is if a termite happens to come up that block building a tunnel, and he gets up here And he can't crawl upside down on that slick metal to get around over here because it's just too slick for his little pads on his feet to hang on. And it usually deters them from wanting to come up, and that's why I beat that metal down so tight around that. And I may even come back and put some silicone or something other around that right there to actually seal that off a little bit better before I actually set my treated wood down on top of it. So this is how you install a termite shield on top of a pier pad 8x8x16 concrete block. Alright, we've got all of our termite shields on now. As you can see, this is the blocks. They're on all of them. Completed, and I didn't go into any detail with you about the corners here, but I actually used 2 on the corners. I have one coming from this side right here coming across. I cut it and notched it. One coming from that side coming across, all the way across. It's up under it because we're making a corner. I notched them where one laps over the other one. I'm probably going to come back and put some kind of sealer up under that, some kind of either liquid nails or silicone or something up underneath it to kind of help hold it in place and get it sealed down good to the other piece of metal that's under it. But the rest of it's, you can see once again, they're all on. We are ready for the sills or girders, whichever one you want to call it. Then it will be the floor joists after that. So I hope y'all have enjoyed watching how to put termite shields on and how to make them. Thank you from Deep South Homestead.